I hate bilateral ODI series. And yes, I'm aware that it is violently in opposition for my need for more bilateral T20s, but one-day cricket is my third favourite form of cricket, which makes it like my fourth favourite form of sport. I like qualifying tournaments and World Cup, but outside of this, I have no real interest in it at all. This may be the only last knock I ever do on a bilateral ODI series.
This is the last knock. It is very good, but I'd rather play Minecraft.
But there are two reasons I am doing this one now. I watched it all because I was commentating for TalkSport, and these are the best two one-day teams in the world. I mean, they just are. This series has also been a bit of an unofficial referendum on how these two teams played. India won the first game, meaning England's style of play was reckless. The next game suggested that India batted too slow. And then in the final game, India went a lot harder, although they said that was more to do with bad bowling. And it was England's recklessness that finally caught up with them again, except they almost won that as well. Weirdly, England's recklessness didn't seem to be that big of a problem when they were winning, that whole World Cup thing. The truth is that they're just both really good one-day international cricket teams. I made a video about how they played and how they go about it before the series started, and you could pop over there if you need to see some charts. But there are a few things I noticed that seem to be worth taking a bit of a look at here, like England and the middle overs. There was a time when England's middle overs were kind of patrolled by some lost member of the Clegane brothers. Liam Plunkett would thump the ball violently into the middle of the wicket, while Adil Rashid did, wizard things at the other end. Rashid probably had a slightly slower series than he normally would because he was fighting against the Indian middle order, but I think he's fundamentally missing Plunkett. Stokes has never been a consistent wicket taker in ODIs, and I doubt he's about to learn that. He has 5 wickets in his last 10 ODIs, and 3 were in one match in this series. But perhaps the bigger problem is Moeen Ali, who actually bowled quite well economically at the time, but he's never been a reliable or regular wicket taker in ODIs. But he seems to have got even worse, and that includes the ball that spun and surprised the face off of Virat Kohli. But part of England's plan is to regularly take wickets in the middle, because they know their bowlers are, usually more expensive. Their hope is to get to the death with 5 or more wickets down. And unlike their batting lineup, most teams kind of struggle at that point. Moeen Ali has 8 wickets in his last 21 games. So let's imagine that this is their perfect bowling attack. Wood has to step up to the Plunkett role. I'm not sure it works as simply as that, but Liam Plunkett was the first of his breed, and he nearly perfected the role, but England's going to have to find someone else who's going to take wickets in the middle with seam. Before Liam Livingstone played his first ODI, I checked his domestic record, and he has played 55 List A matches, which seems fine for a young talent, but only 27 of those are for Lancashire, and 25 of those with the England Lions, and another 3 for another representative side. This is what's going to happen more and more for major cricket teams going forward. They're going to find a young talent, train and prepare them exactly as they want to be able to use them. Still allow them to play some games outside of that. In Livingstone's case, he also has experience through playing franchise cricket. Players are learning a lot quicker because they're having these sort of varied backgrounds now. That means when Livingstone comes out to bat in a series like this, he's used to playing in front of big crowds, although that didn't matter as much here. He's used to playing overseas. England have prepared him for a middle order spot. He's travelled. He's a bit more, he understands his game a little bit more. For Lancashire, he's batted mostly 3 and 4, and for the Lions, it's been 5 or 6. England have been grooming him for this role. That's kind of what modern cricket is going to be. So in that video I mentioned where I talk about how these teams play ODIs, I've talked about how they are so much better than other teams in, the middle overs. But I've been thinking about whether the averages and run rates in this period, about which team is actually better, which approach. On paper, this looks like India have this, keeping 0.8 of a wicket advantage for only 8 runs less seems like a good plan. But when you watch both teams play, it feels like England's option is ultimately better. However, I kind of love how perfect they are for each lineup, even if they're not perfect plans. That doesn't always happen. So these are Kuldeep Yadav's figures before and after the start of 2019. Clearly, something has changed. People like to suggest that Dhoni is no longer behind the sticks, but Kuldeep's slide started when Dhoni was still there. I will obviously, being that it is me, one day do a big long look into left arm wrist spin, and one reason I think it doesn't work as well in the long term. But in the short term, Kuldeep just needs to play a lot of cricket and work out what has gone wrong from 2019 on. And some of it will just be that left arm wrist spinners can be worked out. He has tried to change his game as well. He put on the screen during one of the ODIs that he was bowling quicker of recent times, which is a good sign that he's clearly trying to improve. In the second ODI though, he was bowling a little bit slower, perhaps because Virat thought he needed a wicket. And the problem is, if you do that against English batters with a white ball when there is no spin or little spin, they just massacre you. There is no milking, they just disembowel you. I still think that Kuldeep is a decent prospect, but India need to look after him. And in the short term, they need a wrist spinning option. And it's possible that Kuldeep and Jarrod just aren't what they need, as good a bowlers as they have been for India. For the second ODI, England had 2 left-arm seamers in their team. In the previous game, they had more people from the Curran family than left-arm seamers. In the T20 matches, they had more guys born in Barbados than left-arm seamers. I mean, you get the idea. During the 20 years of ODIs and T20 internationals, that's 561 games for England, they have played 2 frontline southpaw seamers 14 times. I've long been fascinated why England, South Africa and the West Indies don't produce left-arm seam at the same rate, while everyone else, well, some teams just seem to find lots of it. I mean, this thing on the screen right now shows that Ireland and Zimbabwe have even bigger problems than England in finding it. Although, I don't think we should be worried too much about Zimbabwe. I think they might have bigger problems than that. Ireland is a developing nation, and they have found a left-arm seamer of recent times. Although I did also check Scotland, and they don't have a lot of left-arm seam, meaning this could be something to do with the British Isles. My friend Jonas suggested that it might be conditions-based, that places that give you more help with the ball, you might need less variety in your attack, and that may make sense for teams like England and South Africa. I'm not sure it makes as much sense for West Indies or New Zealand on this particular list. But it's better than my theory, which is that England leans so conservative with their cricketers that they even bowl right. Prasidh Krishna has played 40 T20s, and over half of those have been for Kolkata, where he averages 44.5 and goes at like over 9 and over. And yet here he is playing white ball cricket for India. A part of this has to be his incredible List A record, where he takes 1.7 wickets per match back in 2018, when he was someone that India had, just a lot of interest in. He played for India A, India B, the emerging team. Since then, he's been a bit in the wilderness. And considering his last IPL season was as poor as kind of all the ones he had played before, you'd have to assume that he was picked almost entirely on 7 List A matches in February, where he took 14 wickets and won every 24 balls. And Krishna is an interesting one because there is a lot of energies to his delivery. They're around 90 miles an hour and he gets sideways movement. But he also went at nearly 10 and over in the power play in this series. I don't know where he will end up, but there is clearly a lot of good stuff there. But there is also just a lot of stuff there. And I don't want to do too much of like a lightning round here. And before you comment on the video about KL Rahul's form, I may look at that later in a future video. There's no promises. And I'm not going to mention the England openers, even if they are now statistically have the best average and strike rate, minimum of 20 innings of any partnership ever. And every time I do it last night like this, Shardul Thakur has done something, but maybe not enough for me to focus on him. One day I will actually take a longer look. Maybe not today, but I do like his one finger slower ball. No, today is about the fact that we saw 2 of the best ODI teams play out a fairly meaningless series, but that ended up really close. And isn't that what we really want? An artificially tense finish from a brutally short, pointless series. And what an end it was. India finally dropped Kuldeep and they picked Natarajan, despite the fact that this is the game they were going to play Hardik, and he's a seamer as well. Oh, I don't know. Oh, what about Hardik? Hardik dropped 2 absolute sitters. And for one, he was seeing the ball so poorly that when he tried to kick it, he missed the ball again and missed the padded boundary triangle also. India dropped a couple more catches, which made the whole end so much more fun, while Sam Curran knocked back run after run when batting with an even lower order player than himself. Ravi Shastri tried to out-angry face Virat Kohli, who was on a magnificent face game all game through, and then Curran decides to get them in heaves. It's boundary or dot with the odd potential run out. My particular favourite moment was when you could just hear in the stump mic, "Run Woody, run!" which now I think about it is a weird amalgamation of two of Tom Hanks's most famous roles. And of course their partnership finally ends because one of them actually, falls over, which seemed entirely apt because they were trying to run each other out almost the entire time. Then Reece Topley comes out to bat with a couple of runs needed, and he has more pro wickets than runs, yet he still smokes the ball through the covers before Sam Curran could fall just short of winning the game and, bring out those people, the deserved 100 crowd from out behind their rock so they could cheer for the innings. I don't know why people say deserved 100, but the point is that in this meaningless ODI series where we had a couple of players who were just filling in, a couple of players on trial, it came down right to the end. And we will always remember, some of us will remember, there was a series that was played. And if you go to the records, you'll see there were some one-dayers. Look, all I know is that based on this, it means that India's method is way better than England's. 2-1, 66% to 33%. I believe now that England have to hand back their World Cup for winning it the wrong way. See you in the IPL.